It's the time of year for beaches and, for some people, sandcastles, which is what made me think this might be a fun image to draw. And also, it's a great candidate for doing what's called high contrast interpretive drawing. That's where just the shadows are drawn and the outlines of the lighter areas are left open, and the eye of the observer fills in the rest. So what I did to achieve that was I started with a light pencil sketch, including most of the outlines, just so that I could see where I was going. But as I was doing this sketch, I was observing the core shadows and the cast shadows, which would be these darkened areas. And they're very defined in this particular image, which is what happens in strong sunlight. And that, of course, is a property you would find at the beach. So after drawing this preliminary sketch, and I went very lightly because I knew I was going to erase a lot of those pencil marks, and I used graphite for this just because they're easy to erase. Then I went to showing just the shadows and leaving, as I said, the light areas undefined. And eventually I erased those preliminary pencil marks, leaving those light areas undefined. So the result is a sort of cross between an abstract image and a representative image. You can tell that it's a castle, indicating the sky, again in very flat coloring. Gives you the impression that it's probably a water scene. So this is very different than many of the things we've worked on where we're trying to get contour and shape and volume. But the interesting thing is, in order to see these shadow areas and put them down, define them, you have to understand shadow and volume and core shadow and cast shadow in order to get this very abbreviated rendition. For the coloring, now sand is a variety of colors. It depends upon where you are. It depends upon the time of day and what the lighting is. But I used a reddish brown, and for the very dark areas I used a dark brown. For the sky, for the water, I used a sort of turquoise, and for the sky, a lighter blue. And that could vary because sky and water again are different colors. If you didn't have a dark, a reddish brown, you could use a sort of a gold. It's a yellowish, but it's got some earth tone in there, and then go over the top of it with a little bit of blue, which could give it an earth or a sand color. If you didn't have a gold such as this, you could even layer with a yellow carefully. So you'd want to experiment with your palette there. Now, of course, this image can be done traditionally using, indicating all the details, because there are wonderful details in here, and it's a fun image. And if you enjoy doing buildings, what could be more fun than drawing a castle? So if I were going to do this in a traditional way, I would first pick out the big shapes, because it looks fairly complicated, and it could be, but this is basically a rectangle, so I would sort of get that down with a sort of slanted edges there. And then this is another, again, observing angles. This is a little bit slanted here, then it slants up here, and these steps come around. So I would get that down. And then there are the towers here. So I would briefly indicate those. This one's a little bit lower. And that would be a sort of very brief map for me to begin to make sure, first of all, that I get the whole image on the page and that I have the basic shapes. Then I would go back, and again, I'm working very lightly because, and as a matter of fact, at this stage, I think what I would do is erase this and just get a ghosted image of that pencil, because if I went in with colored pencil, I don't want the graphite to mix with that. So now I sort of have a little road map here, and I think I would go in with this sort of goldish tone and begin to define these details, checking my proportions as I go along. That's a little bit short, so I'd come down a little bit further, like so. And then erasing these graphite marks as I adjust the proportions. And work my way around. That's a little hard to see. Darken this a little bit. And I might, just so I don't forget, I might just indicate where there are some shadows. I can go in darker later on. And I wouldn't want to put too much detail in the beginning, but I might just indicate some, just so I don't lose my way and get confused as to which section of this wonderful, oh, there's a stairway that comes around there. I just noticed that. So that would be kind of fun to put in. And continue to work my way around, indicating these wonderful shapes.